Welcome everybody back to G2 Kappa. Get to know a person already, and today I am talking with yet again. These early episodes will all be my friends, but one of my very best, oldest friends in this content creator community, Matt, aka thatKG. Matt, thank you for doing the show with me. I appreciate you, man.
It's a pleasure, buddy. Glad to be here.
I'm super stoked. So we did this, when I was doing the first iteration of G2 Kappa, which was for our wrestling community. So that's where I want to start, which is
Okay.
I met you through TikTok wrestling community.
Is this
How
true?
did you end up there?
I stumbled across it in late 2019, early 2020, like pre-pandemic, pre-shutdown, where like it was just kind of people were starting to do stuff, and then I started to notice more and more as things were shutting down, people popping up, and I said, you know what, I'll try this out. I'll throw my hat in the ring, as it were, except I didn't have a hat. I just had a mask and a hood. And then I ditched the mask and I had the hood for a very, very long time. So much so that we had to wait a long time before we could do the G2 cap, because I had to wait till I did the face reveal so that we could have a conversation, because otherwise it'd be like we're breaking kayfabe, and no one does that. Because at the time it was very, very serious. Very serious. Which anyone that's
Serious
ever
business.
watched the original one can attest to. It was very serious back in 2020 when, well, to be fair, it was all we had, any of us were really doing at the time, because we couldn't, because everything was shut down.
It was a wild time. It was the Wild West, man. I feel
It
like
was,
everybody was doing whatever.
It was strange and interesting times that we lived in, and we lived through it. And here we are on the other side.
So there's two sides of that coin I want to get into. One is the wrestling side, of course, and two is the content side. So first, we'll jump into the wrestling side because I have a lot more on the content side. But what, like, as a wrestling fan, were you a wrestling fan your whole life as a kid? Like, what did?
Yes. Short answer is yes. I don't even remember exactly the moment I started liking wrestling. It was just something as far as I can go back, I always remember liking it. It was probably watching Rock and Wrestling, that cartoon. I probably watched that when I was a kid first, and then like, wait, these are real people? Oh my God, that's crazy. The most vivid memory I have of in my youth, and going back a long time, was I watched I think it was the WrestleMania 3 contract signing between Andre and Hogan.
Okay.
Because it was at Cops Coliseum in Hamilton. I think it was three or four.
Is that where he grabbed the chain? Which was the one where
that was the one where they signed the he took the chain, and then they flipped the table, and they were right up in each other. It was when Andre had signed with Heenan, and it was a big to-do. That was the big match. I feel like it was 3, because it would have been 87, 88. I think. I don't know. My memory's horrible.
So, of course, you're an old school fan. Did you ever go to any shows as a kid, or?
Oh, well, that was a live show, so that was like I was about that whole show.
You went to that show?
I was physically no. I physically was in the arena when that happened. I watched that happen in real time. Yeah, like that's I actually watched that real time. Because it was just a house show that it was like they were filming for Superstars, and that was the one segment that they like kept, and I was like, I remember that. You can kind of see me if you look real close. But I just remember that, and also remember cussing out all the heel wrestlers to the joy of all the drunken Hamiltonians around me, as this small child doing my best to cuss them out without swearing, because I didn't really understand swearing.
How dare you, concern it?
I believe I had also and I know this because I had seen Three Amigos, so it would have had to have been 88, because it was out on video. I remember seeing it on video. That I was very prevalent with the use of scum sucking pig. That was my favorite insult. And the good old steel worker boys around were like, yeah, you tell them. I didn't know any better.
You give it to them.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, buddy. And I was like, oh, you're big and scary.
So, the question begs itself, because you brought it up. Which amigo?
What was that?
Which amigo? Three Amigos. Which amigo?
I got to think real careful on that one now. It's
Because
got
what
to be
is it? It's
Lucky.
Martin Short, Chevy Chase, and Steve
Steve
Martin,
Martin.
right?
Yeah, it was Lucky. Steve
Oh,
Martin.
okay.
Lucky Day. And specifically only because he has my favorite part in that movie. When they're trying to
Okay.
sneak back into the studio to get their costumes to go down to Mexico, and he's doing the bird calls, and they're just ignoring it. And he's going, you who, you too, you two, you two. Look up here, look up here, look up here. To this day, I giggle like an idiot every time I watch that because it's just so ridiculous. I'm a fan of
I love that.
ridiculous.
What I was going to say, Steve Martin makes me think of you very specifically because you got music, you got comedy,
Hmm.
you got theater. You know, like you're a very Steve Martin guy. I
I
feel like
try. I just don't have the glorious head of silver hair.
you know we can't have everything. Okay, you're so
I can't
blessed
have
with so many
everything.
other things. You
Yeah,
can't
it's
have
true.
everything.
I'm not a prolific
Okay,
playwright.
so I feel like this leads perfectly into the next part I want to go into.
All
But
right.
something that, of course, at least for me, that I'm very interested in you and I want to hear more about is you have a extensive background in theater, and we've talked a lot of
This is
theater,
true.
musicals, things like that. How did you
Yeah.
get into that? Were you in theater as a kid? Were you?
Um. Oh, we're going anecdotal fun stories. These are great. I the grade school I went to loved doing a lot of productions with kids. Like a lot of the kindergarten kids would always do it. We had a Christmas pageant like the first year.
Mm,
When I was in like senior kindergarten, which is like right proper kindergarten, but they had junior, which was basically babysitting for the kids, and then senior kindergarten, which is we're actually going to teach them shit. Our senior kindergarten class did The Wizard of Oz, which was just as majestic as you can imagine a North End steelworking town's grade school production would be. I was the Cowardly Lion, complete in my brown
oh my
Adidas
god!
tracksuit, with the blue stripes down the back and a tail tacked on it. I was the Cowardly Lion. But I also was the narrator because I could read good. I'd done able to read good in kindergarten, so they had me, narrate it too, because why not? And the video that we had, that, of course, my parents rented a video camera for this. Like, we have to film this. This is great. I was up there. I was directing the kids. I was telling them they were standing in the wrong spots. I was correcting the songs when they fucked it up. It was ridiculous. It was like, I was insufferable as a child, but goddamn, like we got one show, guys. We can't fuck this up.
And then,
It
of
was
course, that would
magical.
lend well to what you did later on. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. But
Yeah.
being in
But
more
yeah, I
that
was
side of
always
it,
in, yeah, but I was always involved from a very, very young age, always involved in theater in some capacity or another. And then got very lucky when I was, preteen into teens, being involved in like some professional theater and then some professional television and all that, excuse me, fun stuff. So I got very lucky when I was very young, and then kind of aged out of that, and then aged into, okay, well, I'm not the best singer and I'm not the best dancer, but I can sure as hell tell people where to stand and what to do. I'll direct. So, because, in most performing arts, you kind of just fail upwards. Or once you can't do the thing you want to do, you start getting more and more power to tell the people how to do that.
are you hitting me with the ye old those who can't do teach? Is that what you're hitting me with?
Yeah, those that can do, those that can't teach, those that can't teach direct. Um,
There you go. So
and I say that as a director. Yeah,
before we get
we're
too
gonna
far
back.
from
Yeah,
this, I got to get back to this. Okay.
yeah,
Well,
go
first
back.
off, the thing I'm really enjoying about this era of G2 Kappa, get to know a person already, is like we've known each other for years. We've had
Yeah,
long, in-depth
many,
conversations,
many.
like closer than pretty much anybody else I've known in the same
It's
time
true.
frame.
It's true.
Did you know like that my hometown was also a steelworker town?
I did. I did know that.
Because well, as I say, because actually our high school was the Steelmen.
Nice.
So that was a big
There
thing.
you go.
So, but secondarily, because I just had this conversation and I can't think of
Hmm.
anyone better to have this part of this conversation with, because I was like, I'm gonna bring this up on
Okay.
the podcast.
Okay.
So just because it's bothering me,
Okay.
and it may just be I'm a weird person, okay? But it makes it so much better that you were the Cowardly Lion, because
Yeah.
what was the scarecrow missing?
Brains.
Okay, what was the Tin Man missing?
Heart.
Okay, what was the lion missing?
Courage.
It wasn't courage because the other
No.
two are missing an organ.
Yeah,
So
that's
what
true.
organ gives the courage? I think it's the penis.
Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. The MGM Wizard of Oz is a beautiful movie. But if anyone watches that movie as in 2024, and I will drop a hot take on this right now, and I will deal with the consequences after the fact. Anyone that does not get that the Cowardly Lion was at best a thinly veiled metaphor for homosexuality is fucking deluding themselves.
Very flamboyant performance as
He
well.
refers to himself as a dandelion. Dandy, of course, being a metaphor for a homosexual back in old timey parlance. They make a big deal about how he's just, he's just very overly dramatic and meek and mild and didn't want to fight until he had to. It was
Put him
at
up,
the
put him
time.
up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just it. It was thinly veiled at best, but it was family friendly, thinly veiled. So like the kids would just think he was silly, and the adults would be like, I know what he's talking about there. Oh, he's one of those guys." And it was funny at the time. It's
I
still, and
feel like
people still find it charming now.
I just feel like there's so many of those things though. When you're a kid, you don't pick up on that because you're just like, oh, it
No,
makes sense because it's whatever.
yeah,
But then as an adult, you're like, oh
hmm
man, like this is so odd. Like if you watch a lot of cartoons, like Ren and Stimpy. As a kid, Ren and
yeah,
Stimpy was, just whatever. But as
silly.
an adult, I'm like,
Yeah,
this is messed up.
yeah, oh yeah. Even as I remember watching it when I was a teen. Even then, I was like, some of this is real fucked up.
No.
Some of it was silly, and some of it was like, I don't know, the flying butt pliers.
But yeah, I got called crazy though because I was like, I feel like courage, that's penis. But you couldn't sing if only I had a penis, 30, 40
Yeah.
years ago.
Well,
Um,
balls, masculinity. Want to argue
yeah,
balls, which is masculinity. So it's
yeah,
all that kind of like, yeah, that sort of. If I only had the balls, doesn't have the same ring to it
yeah.
as if I only had the nerve.
I feel it. Probably
Yeah.
better than what I said. I just thought, penis, whatever. Anyway,
No, but it's all the same area.
all neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah.
But jumping ahead, okay,
Yeah.
we kind of went through your early
Mm-hmm.
parlance with theatrical performance. You
Yeah.
briefly kind of touched on directing. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously we get from your early performances, going in high school,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. When did you make the jump? Was it like local theater? Like what was your first big performance, like a non-school based performance?
I gotta think. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because I did a lot of grade school. It really, I think, was. Yeah, it would have been 90. And I have to try to do it by date to remember everything. It was been 92. I kind of lucked into a like professional, like equity professional production of A Christmas Carol at Theater Aquarius in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario. Um, Sort of just by kind of by happenstance, and also because I'd been getting trained, like a lot of performance training from several individuals, one of which was Lou Zampronia, who had done a bunch of stuff when he was younger, like professionally, like London West End, Broadway, all that kind of stuff. Done a bunch of film stuff, and then he kind of settled, well, back in I don't know if it was back or in Hamilton, but sort of settled here and opened a dance studio, and then ran a bunch of performance programs through Theater Aquarius. And because I'd worked with him and he was the choreographer on that particular production, it's like I need a kid to play this kid, and you're not crap, so go. Like, you take direction real well, so go, kid. It'll be great. And it was a lot of fun. Not realizing at the time the favors that the production team had called in for the cast on this. It became kind of I look back on it, and it was very much a who's who of Canadian performers. Like, he basically kind of, because it was in December, they had rated Stratford's light opera performers, like everyone that did any of the Gilbert and Sullivan shows in Stratford, which is like our big, like, uh, Ontario, at least from Ontario's perspective, they do a Shakespeare festival every year. Very, very big deal. Runs like 20 shows the entire summer. It's wild. He'd poached all of those performers. Not poached, but he brought them all in to do this show. So I was like
Yeah.
working alongside some of the best to do it at that time, which was kind of wild for me. As a theater nerd, it was wild for me to be like, holy shit, I actually know these people. Well, knew them because
What
a
I
lot
was
of
going
them
to
have
say is
passed
that,
since then.
so obviously that was a huge thing for you so early on,
Hmm.
in getting into theater at that level. Have you ever gotten a chance to work with anybody that's like considered like a larger star, somebody that you were like, wow, I can't believe this happened? Or was that like kind of the creme de
um,
la creme early on?
that theatrically, again, I didn't really clock a lot of that until later in my life when I kind of looked
Mm.
back on that because I'm like, I remember that show being a lot of fun. And I looked at the cast and went, holy shit! These people had done like stuff that's considered like hallmarks of Canadian theater that at the time I had no concept of because they're just like, oh, there's just people. Because spoiler alert, actors are just people. Um, I know it's so weird. But no, I've kind of it's very strange because I've always had this, I don't know, talent, let's say, for kind of finding people that either at the time had some notoriety that I don't know about, or then later on in their life went on to have sort of
Mm.
fame and notoriety in very strange ways. Um, yeah, it's the running joke. 'Cause I'm always fame adjacent. But I've said
Yeah.
before, I'm never the guy. I'm the guy behind the guy. I'm kind of the guy beside the guy. But I've had a chance to work with. I'm trying to remember. I hate name dropping, but I'm also trying to remember names, which is wild.
I get you.
Um, what the hell's his name? The dad on Webster.
Oh, I would
He's
have
the
to
football
Google it.
player whose name is
I know
escaping
who
me.
you're talking about, but yeah,
Him.
yeah.
Um, I worked on a like made for like Canadian made for TV movie with him and his wife,
Okay.
which was kind of wild when I was young, like way younger. I'm trying to think of.
So
I
while
think
you're
I'd said
thinking
I
of it, I got
can't
more
remember.
questions
Yeah,
for you.
give me
What?
more
Just
questions and I'll
have it running in
bring
the
more name.
background. Yeah.
I'll have bring more
Well,
names.
because you said something that
Yeah.
piqued my interest, which was a lot of these people
Hmm.
were doing the. You said it was like a Shakespeare scene, like a Shakespeare
Yeah,
festival or something, like 20
yeah.
Shakespeare. Are you a
It's the
Shakespeare
Stratford
guy? Did you
Festival.
do any Shakespeare? Okay.
I did Shakespeare when I was in university. I did a bunch of it there. It's not a thing I have really pursued outside of that. I'm not particularly good at it. Just
I find
because
that hard to believe, but okay.
I'm very much a paraphrase. I'm not so much now, but especially when I was younger, I was kind of a paraphrase guy. Where I would remember the root of what I was trying to say in a line, and I would get there and I'd get the cue line. You cannot do that with
Yeah.
Shakespeare. You do that, and no one knows what the fuck you're talking about, including you. I struggled a lot more with just learning lines. That I still on the day I'd never have a problem, but it was harder for me to memorize the lines with that, and because I had a harder time memorizing the lines, it took me longer to get figure out the character because I was so worried about just say the fucking words right. So
Mm.
there's a lot of performances that I remember watching videos from after the fact, going, "Jesus, that was fucking dog shit." Um, sorry, we
Well,
can bleep
so
all of that. I cuss a lot.
oh no, this is explicit. You can say whatever you like.
Oh heck yeah! Fuck fuckity fuck fuck
So
fuck.
my question that leads me to, because
Got
that
him.
was something you struggle with, what
Hmm.
was maybe a character you played that was like just came the easiest to you?
Jesus, I'm trying to think. Um, there's a couple. I mean, when it comes to just like like legitimate theater, straight theater, pure theater,
Theater.
non musical theater.
Mhm.
Um, Jesus Christ, I'm trying to think. And I can't remember the character's name. It was this was when I was again back when I was in university. It was a play called Possible Worlds. Couldn't tell you who wrote it. Vaguely recall what it was about. No, actually, no, that's not true. I remember what my part of it was about. It was basically I was this detective that was assigned a new partner. Like again, it's the crotchety old detective. He's just at the end of his fucking career, just kind of burning out. Assigned this new partner, and we're assigned this case where people are being murdered and their brains are being stolen. And like it was the B plot of this play that we were doing, where it's like it would keep cutting back to these detectives. Um, that one, oddly enough, because it was just I had to be frustrated, tired, and smoke a lot, which pretty much that described
Sounds
me
true to
in
life.
university. And it really was one of those, because this is also how you can tell how old this was. I was still able to smoke in the theater as long as it was in a play. We didn't have to use herbals. So I would go through, this was the play itself was about maybe an hour and 20 minutes with an intermission. I'd go through a pack a show, just because I
There's
was
places
constantly.
in the there's places in the states you still can, like Texas. When I lived in Texas, they don't care
Well,
if you're
sure, because
performing in the. Uh,
you can still smoke in bars in Texas, I'm sure.
so I'm saying there's still some places that
Oh
you
yeah,
still can. That's wild.
some
Wait, so
bastions
I'm
of
just
freedom.
curious, like, did it hit in Canada before the U.S. or like was it roughly same
Oh
time where like a
yeah,
lot of the
oh yeah, yeah,
smoking
yeah.
bans came out? Was that like
We
a
It was already in like 2002, 2003. Most places you couldn't smoke inside. Like I think in 0203, bars could have like bubbles, like areas that were sectioned off with like plexiglass and fans where people could go to smoke. Otherwise, you went outside, and everyone at the time was like, "This is bullshit." And then it just became a
so?
thing, and everyone got used to it because we didn't have a choice.
Well, say so. Obviously, I didn't smoke. My parents both
Yeah.
prolific smokers. My dad like two and a half
Mm.
packs a day. But
Jesus.
I remember going with them,
Oof.
and we literally drove to Michigan to go to a
Mm.
restaurant called Redemax. Shout out to anybody that knows what Redemax is in Michigan. It's kind of a bigger thing if you go to Michigan. But I remember going there because you could still smoke there. It was like a thing. So it's whatever.
Mm. For
Um,
sure.
so speaking of
Mm.
Renemax, this kind of
Hmm.
segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which is something that you've been known for the entirety of the time I've known you,
It's true.
and that KG, which you've gone by on the
Hmm.
internet for, which stands for
Hmm.
what?
I'm gonna pull the veil back. It stands for that kitchen guy.
Oh man!
Um,
Now the
Finally, I've
gasp
revealed
that
it.
is just gusped.
What?
So can
Yeah, it was
you
that kitchen
elaborate on
guy.
that? When did you get into cookery? Like, is that something that you ever thought you
Um,
were going to get into as a career?
it really wasn't. I mean, I'd had the odd fast food job when I was a teenager, and like worked at Subway for a while as a sandwich artist back when they
I love
made
that.
subs good. Back when
I
they made
love
their
the
sub
term
when they used to
sandwich
do
artist.
back when they used to do the little V gouge in the top of the bread that no one else did, and they just load everything on top. None of this side cutting bullshit that they do now. Hot takes. That is
That's
my
like
favorite.
deli
That's what.
style. That's like legit deli
Yeah,
style where you do the
that was
yeah.
the because it was based off the New York delis. That's where all their sandwiches were based off. And now I don't know what I feel so. I don't know what the hell they're doing now. They got shawarma
The kids these
subs. What the hell
days.
is that? Everyone cuts the
Uh,
sandwich from the side. They gotta toast them. Who does that? I feel so ancient, but I don't care. I remember the good old
I
days when
do
we had
toast
six
my
subs. That was
some
it.
of them.
Sure, there's
I,
nothing wrong. There's
I do
nothing
toast
wrong
some of
with
them.
it. I always look back to. I remember when I worked there and we had seven subs. That was all you had. You seven subs to choose from. Everyone would get meatball. That was it.
That was. Do you
Um,
remember? So we're kind of in the way back machine. We're not that far off in age difference, but like, I feel like
yeah.
you did you work there during the Coneheads thing? Because that was why meatball subs got
Coneheads.
super big around here. There was like the Coneheads movie. There was a
Mm,
Saturday Night Live thing,
it
and
was.
he was
I
like
think
big
I
into
was.
meatball subs.
I think it was. I
That
was
was like a
pre
huge thing.
Coneheads. I was pre Coneheads. It was just one of those like that. I also the subway I worked at was like two towns over from where I lived. And then the one I was at was across the street from the only bar that was in that town. And we were open an hour after that bar closed. So I would
Oh
literally like the
man,
bar would close and everyone would file over. That's why they stayed open an hour later because they knew all the drunks would come over and get sandwiches. And it was always just
it's
meatball sub. I'm like, yep. Do you want onions on that? No, just the sauce and the cheese. All right, buddy. There you go. I'm great at
That
that.
makes way
I had
more
that shit
sense
down to a
now.
science.
Well,
Yeah.
because I'm like, Subway doesn't seem like
Horrible job.
post bar food activity. Like, but
It
meatball subs make
well, I
sense.
mean, the meatball sub, like when you're hammered and you gotta go home, when you're drunk and you gotta drive home from a one bar town, you want a meatball sub in your car. It'll soak up the liquor. I'll
So
get home quicker.
I was gonna say my
I should have
go-to
been there.
was this place that closed like 4 a.m. as like a greasy hot dog joint. I get chili dogs at. That's what
Oh,
that was my
see, that's
go-to
just it.
post bar activity.
We never had a good hot dog joint in this area ever. Well, sorry, there's one, but it was like out of the way and it closed at like 7 o'clock. It doesn't count.
Hmm. Yeah,
Easterbrook,
ours
so
was
they had foot
open
long. They
after
yeah.
last call, so we were good.
Oh well, for when I was growing up, it was only open in the summer. Like it was only open like May to September. But it's the only all they sold. They had foot long hot dogs. They had 32 varieties like Baskin Robbins, but they had 32 different foot long hot dogs. That's all they sold, and people would line up for hours to get them because it was like it was the only place you could get a foot long hot dog. So that was the
So
sad
where
existence
did
we had where we are.
so you're at Subway, you're slinging meatball
Yeah,
subs. What is your
yeah.
transition then? How where because I want you to get into some of the cooler stuff that you were doing
Okay,
later on.
so
How did you transition to
I'll
this?
jump ahead from there. It was one of those things I kind of just sort of fell into, because I did that like a lot of that in high school. Then I did a lot of retail, uh, too much cell phone retail for me to brag about because it was not fun. Um, but I also kind of lucked into a job that sort of brought me back into it professionally, which was at a golf course that again was like 2 towns over from where I was. But the owner there was a great guy. I can't remember the name of the golf course for the life of me because my memory's garbage. But the owner of it was named Paul, and this man was just an absolute gem. Giving guy, had just a little too much access to the Food Network without any real training, but he
Okay.
loved to try stuff. And he loved it when people would bring him ideas. So I kind of would start firing crazy ideas at him to see what he would say no to eventually. And it wasn't much that he would say no to. And I kind of got to the point where I started to feel bad because I'm like, I'm costing this guy a lot of fucking money. Um, but again, it's because he owned this golf course, and it was the golf course. It was a 9-hole course that was attached to the farm that his family owned. It was like
Okay.
the front part, and then the farmland. They didn't farm, and like they kind of shut the farm down, but it was still all this farmland, so they built this golf course on it. But then I came to learn that
Sounds like
part
a
of the reason
wedding
why
venue. That's what it sounds like.
very much was they loved doing weddings there. They had this golf course. They would do weddings. It was great. But like I said, I was feeling bad because I kept giving him crazy ideas, and we would make all these like insane amounts of features because we never knew how many people were going to come through, and then we'd end up freezing all of it. But then it didn't occur to me that one of my coworkers that had been there forever mentioned to me, she's like, he freezes all this shit because what do you think they eat in the winter? I was like, that's fucking genius. So like he would make like mass quantities of all this food, and he had like 8 chest freezers in the back of this kitchen that he would just load up with all the stuff that they didn't sell because that's what the family would then eat over the winter when the golf course was closed. And there was, aside from weddings that would rent in the winter, which were always kind of crazy, that was what they did. And I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. But yeah, so I got back into like cooking that way and kind of just refining basics and learning like a lot of the equipment, like the basic equipment, and how not to get hurt using the basic equipment, which is first and foremost learning how to not injure yourself is kind of key. And then back to cell phone retail because it made me a lot more money than working in kitchens. And then I remembered that I still
True.
hate selling phones to people. It was like even on a slow day, I was making more doing phones than I was working in kitchens. But I also just hated retail. And the more I would work in kitchens, the more I would hate retail.
See,
Um,
this is a segue that I did not think we'd take. Do you mind if we go a
oh
little
boy,
over? I don't know how long you got here or
yeah,
whatever,
rock and
but
roll. I don't. It's
because
yeah.
we're already 30 minutes in. Normally, I would start shutting this
Sheesh.
down. We do normally
Oh,
30 40.
oh boy.
But oh no,
I
you're
don't shut
good.
up.
We could talk for 5 hours. But Well, just because. So
Absolutely.
again, this is something mutual background. I worked
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
slinging cell phones for a long time. Shout out Best
Yeah.
Buy Mobile. Anybody used to work Best Buy Mobile? But
Target Mobile.
at one
What?
point in
What?
time, I actually also worked at Target. But so I
Yeah.
had three phones because they would give you got like a free phone with a free
Yeah.
plan if you like worked with whatever.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's a real thing. At least back in the day, selling
Hmm.
cell phones, I hated retail, but you could make a ton of money selling cell phones. Um, but that's
Hmm.
just cool. I like that. It's something that
Yeah.
just commonalities. This is the stuff.
Like the
But
the
GT Gab is
the
a get to know a
hourly. Yeah.
person thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the hourly was great, but the commissions. If you knew your shit and knew how to not be a shitty salesman, woo, you could bring good bank. But also, the disadvantage I have, and part of it came from, like I said, I worked for Target, and in Canada, I worked
Mm-hmm.
for Target until Target didn't exist anymore.
Was to say
Uh,
Target's a weird one for Canada. Yeah.
yeah, well, that was because I was there when it shut down. Truly, I was actually. It's been long enough. They won't. The company fired me, so it doesn't matter. I can tell the story anyways. The mobile section at least up in Canada was run by a separate company. It wasn't run by Target. It was run by a different company that owns a bunch of different
Third
multi-carrier.
party carrier thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a third party deal.
Yep.
The company that I'd worked for, we got the heads up the day before they announced it publicly, and we got the heads up because we had to. And this was the instruction that, because when it was working, it was myself and my manager. We were working because he would always schedule us together because he was big on, like, he would do all the high end sales. I would cover all the mid and the low range stuff, and together we would make great money. Because he hated to have, like, I would do volume and he would do, like, price point. Phenomenal team, started great bank. We got that phone call, and we got the phone call from our district manager saying, here's what you need to do. You have, as of right now, take every piece of hardware that we have in that store, box it up. I'm sending you the shipping labels. There will be a UPS guy there in 45 minutes. Load everything into that truck and then call me back. And we went,
Oh dang.
okay. And then we found out it's because he's like, Target is announcing tomorrow they're closing all Canadian stores. We needed to get the phones out of there in case they decided to shutter the doors, because we didn't know what
Wow.
their plan was for shutdown. Just that we thought that it's quite like we need to get all of our company's product out of the stores in case the Target said we're just shuttering everything. And then we had to try to hide that from all the staff that were working, because we were also all friends with them because we worked with all of them, especially in the electronics
Yeah.
department. So we had to very subtly pack up about $20,000 worth of hardware, from both the
Insane.
kiosk and the safe in the back. Wait for the guy to show up at the back delivery door, let him in to get the stuff so he could leave, and then explain to everyone what we just did. Because he's like, our
That's like a
district said, you can
heist
once
movie.
you've. It was, but he was like, you can't say anything until you've got, once the hardware's gone, tell whoever you want. We don't give a shit. It's not our, we're not the ones that are screwing up. They just canceled a multi-billion-dollar deal with us. We don't care if they're embarrassed at this point.
That's wild.
So that sucked. Yeah, that was wild. That was one of the craziest times.
So you
And then we
pull
still
off
worked
the
for like a month
greatest
after
cell
that.
phone target
Yeah,
heist.
yeah.
And then
Uh,
where do you go from there? Once Target shuts down, where do you go?
once Target shut, then I was back at the golf course that I'd been working at, but again, that was only
Okay.
seasonal. Um, and then I picked up another cell phone gig with a different company, and they were just trash. But at the time, a friend of mine from university was managing this little bistro close to where I lived. They're like, we need a line cook. And I said, I have some cooking experience. I'm not great, but I'm willing to learn. And got hired on at a company that I ended up working about 6 years at, as a line cook there. Learned a crazy amount of stuff from the guys that ran that, or the one chef that ran that, and the plethora of chefs that I worked under, of which there were many. Um, That, and again, it's going to sound bitter, and I don't want it to, but that's where I developed the phrase of, I'm not the guy, I'm the guy behind the guy.
Hmm.
because at the restaurant I worked at, the bistro ended up turning into a taco. Like they sort of decided to close it and rebrand it as a taco place. So I helped them open the restaurant. From the time I was there until I left, we went through 6 kitchen managers in
Oh wow.
in about 4 years.
Jesus.
Never once was I ever considered for that job, but I was always the one that had to sort of half train them as to how the place ran and how to do the job. So I was never the guy. I was the guy behind the guy. But by the time we got to number 6, I'm like, I can't anymore. Like I've been here way too long, and I'm getting way too cranky. It's not
I
going to end
got some
well for anyone.
I got some sage advice actually from retail from a dude that was like, if you've ever worked retail, there's that one guy that's worked there for like 30 years that's been in the same position like the
Hmm.
whole time, right?
Yeah,
He reached like that one level that's like not quite a manager, but he's
yeah,
like the most veteran dude. And he's the one who told me, he's like, never be too good at your job that you're not replaceable, because then
exactly.
you will stay in that job for absolutely
Hmm.
ever. And he's
Yeah,
like, always be good, but don't be the best.
yeah, exactly. And I guess, well, there was some other politicking there that I understood, but it was also kind of irritating. But it's like I've been here. I love the company. I've been with you guys way too long, and I'm not going up any further. Like there will be no upward mobility for me here, at least with the current. Like with I said, with the current plans you guys have, I'm not leaving here, am I? They're like, well, not really. I said, and I'm not moving up, am I? Well, no, not really. I said, then why am I staying? I said, like, if you're like, there's no, I love here this place, but I'm not going to stay here forever. I can't. It's insane for me to do that. So then I left
So
there.
where do you go from there?
Well, then I was about 2 months in a bakery, which was awful. I just didn't, I learned a bunch of cool stuff there. Wasn't for me. Insanely early mornings. Like I would get to work. I would have to get to work at like 2 a.m. Then I would get out of there at like noon, 1 o'clock. Wasn't for me. Didn't like
We had
it.
another mutual friend that did bakery deliveries, and I always thought it was insane the schedule he had to
Mm.
keep for that. Our friend
Oh yeah.
Kevin, he used to run bakery
Yeah.
deliveries like way back in
Yeah.
the day, and I would get up like super, or I hadn't even gone to bed, and this
Yeah.
man was getting up to do deliveries for the bakeries.
Hmm. Oh, it's wild.
That's
Yeah. Like
wild.
it's just not fun. Oh, why did that? Oh, I was doing that. Is that what I did that? Sorry. I got a little thumbs up on my screen. I was like,
Uh,
why did it do that?
so
Um,
where do we go from the
but yeah,
bakery?
so did the bakery thing, didn't like that. But then saw a posting for there was a new bar, what was it, bar axe throwing escape room place that they were opening up closer to where I was living at the time, that
That
needed
sounds
a sous
awesome.
chef. Oh yeah, I'm like, they needed a sous chef. I'm like, I can do that. I'm real good at doing that. I
Huh.
basically did that for 6 years. And it turns out that one of the kitchen managers I'd had at the place I was working was going to be like the general manager there. So I'm like, this is
Mm.
perfect. So as soon as he saw me, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're good. Don't worry about it. Like I got you." I'm like, "Beautiful." And I was there until it shut down from the pandemic. So it was
Oh
about
wow.
2 years. I helped open that, but I actually helped build the kitchen because there was nothing in there.
Mm.
It was really fun. That place was really fun to work at. I really loved working there. Again, we got the pandemic shut us down. We were one of the first places to shut down, actually, in southern Ontario, because like they kept certain restaurants and stuff. We were like an entertainment venue and restaurant. We were like the most hands-on place ever. So like you guys are shut down immediately.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, because you guys were kind of hybrid, being that different
Yeah.
type of environment.
We were hybrid, but we were the worst kind of hybrid. We were the first place to shut down. We were one of the last places that was allowed to reopen. And this was like wave one, because then there was wave one and then it shut down again. It's like there was the tease of coming back, and then they're like, no, second wave, shut it down. So we were basically like out for another year. Um, and then at that time, when things were starting to open up again, I'm like, I need to get a job because the relief that they're providing is running out and they're stopping it, and I don't have a job that's open right now. So I got a job again, assistant kitchen managing at a pub that was literally around the corner from where I was living at the time. So I was working
Is that
there,
where you
and
where we met?
yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
the
that
pub that I
pub?
was at there,
Okay.
that was that one, yeah. And I was there, and also at the Escape Axe bar restaurant simultaneously at first, but then the hybrid place sort of stopped scheduling me as I was getting scheduled more at the pub. So then I finally was like, okay, I'm just here, and they aren't talking to me anymore. So I essentially sort of just it was a release by attrition, because I was like, well, you're not scheduling me, and I'm not going to bother you for hours, so we're fine.
Guess I
And then I
just
was
work
at
here
that.
now.
Yeah, I guess I just have this one job that's going to take up all my time, which is okay. But I also that pub was also awesome. I loved working as stressful as it was. I loved working there because it started out very very casual, because it was still during like still kind of lockdown, so we were mostly doing takeout when I started, and then it's like takeout, but then we were slowly letting people back, and then more and more people were coming back, and then oh, everyone can come back, and it was just became a nightmare after that. I was like, oh boy.
Well, and that's where I learned about your specialty, which is charcuterie, right?
Oh, I fucking hate you so much. That was actually, I hated that from when it was at the axe throwing escape room place, because that was the thing
Okay.
that they were like charcuterie boards. I'm like, no, like yes, let's get our hands greasy with meat and then throw axes. Nothing could go wrong with that. I hate it. I'm real good at it, but I hate it. Just on principle.
Love that.
It's like
Well, and
throw
then
let's throw a wad of meat and cheese on a board like an Andalusian farmer. Enjoy your meal. Like, come on. Like that's no. That's nothing
that
says
sounds
yum yum like
awesome.
sweaty cheese after you've been throwing axes that you haven't washed your hands at. Nothing can go wrong with that. Let's let this sit. Let me get some room temperature meat and cheese, ideally beading sweat on it. And if you could throw some warm grapes on that too to make it fancy, that'd be perfect. Like, no, sorry. Everything about it is repulsive to me. I'm like, no, this is awful.
I feel like a heat. I feel like a must. Like I don't know, just like it emanates from the thought.
It's
Um,
just, it's such a ridiculous. I get it, but I'm like, no, this is no. It's adult
I always thought it
Lunchables.
was cool hearing you talk about the different things you would make though, and then of course, so
Hmm.
after that's when you went to the barbecue joint, right?
Yeah, after that's when I went to the barbecue joint, which I was there until my injury, which is a whole other tale that we won't have time for on this episode.
Yeah, well, and the other
Yeah,
thing with that though, like we'll get, I definitely want to have you back, and we'll
yeah.
get into a lot of other
Oh,
things too. But
sure,
like
we can go over that.
the uh the cool thing about the barbecue joint is I had always heard you make like this cool stuff and do whatever, but I feel like you had a
Hmm.
lot more freedom there. Like you were doing, I feel like way more with
Oh,
your
I
menu, or
was,
like
I
just
was,
with
I
you.
was the, I was the pit master there. Like, and I know
Okay.
my boss will argue with me because he was technically the owner, manager, operator. I was the pit
Yeah.
master. I was the guy. I was the one that was there. He only came in when he had to. Like when we had massive
Yeah.
caterings, he'd come in, he'd pop by. But like that place, I had on lock, and I was proud of the work I did right up until I got hurt. Then that sucked. But that's a story for a different time. But yeah, that
Definitely.
place, I actually learned I think the most I ever learned in any kitchen was working at that barbecue place. Shout out
I
Salt
was
Lake
gonna say,
Smokehouse. It's the bomb.
well, because you really did. That's what I was gonna say. Like out of all
Yeah.
these things, like I'd always heard
Hmm.
your background and like the different places you were at, but that
Yeah.
was the one place I feel like you were constantly, like at least creatively, I felt like you
Oh
were
yeah.
making new things and
Oh, I was I was doing some crazy, silly, goofy shit there all the time. Like I was deep frying Twinkies for fun. I was coming up with moink balls, which was still makes me laugh that I've even thought of that. The moo oink, the pork beef balls. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was just like okay, it's like okay, did it have a face at one point? Can I smoke it? Okay, we're doing that. Let's go. Yeah,
Out of context of food, did it have a face and can I smoke it? Does not
yeah.
sound necessarily like you're a chef, but um
Hey,
okay. So I feel like I inadvertently kind of ended up turning this into like a resume portion of,
yeah,
of
that's all
the
right.
show, and where
Well,
I'm like, where
I
did you
mean, like
work?
the last
Then where
time,
did you work?
the last time we talked, we kind of did broad strokes on what was going on at the time, but we never really
Yeah.
delved into like that. So there's a lot. I've done a lot of wacky shit in my life.
Well, I was going to say, because we could definitely expound on a lot of these different items, but, we're at 45 in. I do have some
Oof.
questions. Our new
All
version
right.
of kind of the lightning round, which
Okay.
isn't necessarily a lightning round, but it's a little bit more pointed questions, a little more, not directly about you, just some interesting things.
Sure.
So this is one that I thought would be unique to you because I feel like you would have gotten a lot of these. I may be wrong, but you're the type of guy I
Okay.
feel like. But what is the weirdest compliment you've received?
Uh, what's the weirdest compliment I've received? Um, at one point in time, and it was said as a compliment, but it really didn't read it. There was one time again when I was younger, much thinner, had much more hair. Um, at one point, I had made the foolish attempt at trying to do the mustache, which I could actually do. Had a, I had a full beard when I was like 14, like just wild. I don't now, but I used to. But I tried the mustache. I'm like, I want to see if I can actually grow this. And it was a friend of a friend of mine. When because I did the thing, and we all met up and we were hanging out. And he looked at me, he's like, man, you look like a young Ron Jeremy. And I was like, I mean, thanks, I guess. I don't know how to
It's
take that
kind of a
because he
compliment.
wasn't kind of, but like, not really.
No,
So I'm like,
it's however
I
you choose to take it. Okay.
that was just it. I'm like, that's why I meant it was one of the weirdest ones. I was like, thanks, I guess. And
I
immediately
hear
went home and
you.
shaved the mustache because I'm like, no, that's not the look.
I
That's
knew
not
if
it.
anybody I knew would have a Rolodex of weird compliments they've received, I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, it's gonna be you.
There's one that I got. It was after a show that I did. It was not a good music. It was a musical. I can't remember what it was. Wasn't particularly good. I remember that much. And my mother, bless her heart, who has always been the queen of the weirdest commentary. I said, well, what after the show? I'm like, what did you think, Mom? She's like, you looked like you had a lot of fun up there. And I was like, wow. I use that to this day because I'm like, it's the best coded insult. You're like, you really look like you guys had a lot of fun up there. It's like, oh shit, all right.
that that ranks
Yeah.
up there with you tried your best, honey.
Yeah. It's like you looked like you were
Oh, I
having a
love it.
lot of fun. Well, I gotta rethink my choices now.
So again, going into the theater thing, and I feel like you
Yep.
would have one of these. Which
hmm
theatrical superstition do you 100% believe in?
The Scottish play.
Okay,
Because
so what is that
I've seen it play out.
for the uninitiated?
Shakespeare's Scottish tragedy. I don't even like saying it outside of theater context because I have seen
Okay.
people say it and I've seen people say it and then have weirdly like it's an anecdotal story, but I'll tell it anyways. Um, it was a group that I had. It was one of the performing programs I'd gone to. They had a junior program and a senior program. I was in the junior program. It was basically just theater games for the summer. The senior program they would always put on a musical at the end of the program. And this was at like a professional theater. They'd get professional musicians, all the bells and whistles. It was just teens doing professional quality performances. A lot of the people that I said like I met that went on to have careers, we all went through that program.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a year they were doing Chess, the musical, which is one of my favorite shows. Weird as hell, but anyways. And some of the students were having this debate about that show and like, the superstition's bullshit. It's like, no. And then this one girl said, no, it's absolute bullshit. I'll prove it. And she kept saying it over and over and over. And she was trying to do that whole, like, I'm going to dramatically back up and be like, look, see, nothing's happening. And she's like, da 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 da. And after she said it the third time, she fell backwards into the orchestra pit, which was about 13 feet down. So she fell about 13 feet, was
That's also a
fine.
specific number. 13 feet, not 10, not
Yeah.
20.
Well, I mean, it's 10 feet, but there's about 2 inches of stage
Hmm.
of like hardwood that she had to go like falling backwards. You're going to pass that to go down the
No.
10 feet down. It was a hefty drop. Maybe not that deep, but it was still like and everyone was just like dead silent. They're like, and all apparently what happened. All you hear is, "I'm okay." But like at that point in time, because again, like they had to call an ambulance because they're like, "This is fucked up." Like she should have been far more injured than she was. But after that, I'm like, never again. Like, because that's like one of those things you hear rumors of this happening, and I'm like, I saw that happen real time. No, thank you. Not okay. So that tradition,
I
absolutely.
I would be on board with that. I feel like I would also
Yeah.
be staying away from that. Okay,
It's like,
so
okay.
if you were hosting a dinner party, okay,
Okay.
and you
Boy.
can invite three people, any three
Any three
people, like
people.
historical
Any three
figures. It could
people.
be characters
Okay.
from musicals or theater. It could be pro wrestlers. It could be anything you're interested in.
Okay.
So, what three people and what would
Mm-hmm.
you serve them?
Oh, okay. Huh. I'm gonna make this a wildly eclectic mix, mostly for my own entertainment.
Okay.
Stephen Sondheim.
Okay.
So let's see, Sondheim, Dusty Rhodes,
Okay. The American Dream, baby.
The American Dream, baby. Yeah, one of my favorites. I think the third. It's gotta be literary. Mm, mm. Hunter Thompson.
What was the last one? Sorry.
Sorry, Hunter Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson. Okay, I was like,
Hunter S.
it
Thompson.
glitched on my end for one
Yeah.
sec.
Sorry, yeah. Hunter S.
Okay,
Thompson.
so that's
The
okay.
the
Yeah, that's a
craziest dinner
mix.
party ever. Yeah. There's a lot of
So,
hallucinogenics happening at that party.
as I say, serving drugs. What else are you serving at
Yeah.
this?
Um, Pork and beans, baby. Yeah. No.
Literally, what I was thinking. I was like, if you're not
Like
serving
pork and beans,
pork and
baby.
beans,
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes
Um.
reference for anybody who doesn't get that. But
Yeah. Oh no, it would be You have to go barbecue.
okay.
Just with the combo on those, because Dusty ate some barbecue.
Oh, for
Hunter
sure.
Thompson was a massive fan of barbecue. Sondheim, fuck him. He can suffer. If he doesn't like it, he can suffer through it. He made everyone that's performed his shit suffer.
Love it. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So if your life was turned into a musical, what
Oh
would the
shit.
opening number be called?
Oh.
I told you, I catered some question. I was thinking of you, my friend, of stuff that I would be
Realistically, and it's just because it would be, regardless of what kind of show it was, it would have to be called Smoke If You Got 'Em.
Okay.
Because
Dig
it's
it.
just, I mean, everyone that's not, even though I don't really anymore, it was such a thing that was affiliated with me through every aspect of
Iconic.
my life that you can't not talk about it.
Okay. So throughout the episode, podcast, show, whatever you want to call this, we've talked about some of the roles you had that were a little more difficult, some that came super
Mm-hmm.
easy. But if
Yep.
you could play any role in any show, musical, regular show, whatever, we'll even add TV show or movie. Okay, if you're doing a remake, if you could play any role, regardless of gender or age, what would it be and why?
Oh boy. Oh. I wish I had more time to think of this, because that's like saying, "What's your favorite movie?" It's like, oh shit, you got to really think on that.
I'm just curious if there's any role you were like, man, I wish like that would be cool to be that character, like that.
Yeah. You know what? It's not even. And this is just because it's sitting in the forefront of my brain right now. I would really, really love to be in that Fallout series, somewhere in
Okay.
there as some character, because I dig that they've done, like, again. It's very like contemporary, I know, and I'll probably be like, if it's older stuff, it'd be something else. But I just love the fact that they were able to finally translate that game into television properly.
It is a
Um,
very interesting lore filled, like it has a deep lore to that game.
oh yeah, it's deep diving into several decades worth of content, but doing it in a way that doesn't feel like they're talking at you. They're just kind of like they're explaining it as it goes, but in a way that's actually good. But yeah,
Now,
that would be fun.
can I offer up what I would like to see you in?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Because just knowing you as I do, knowing your love of the soundtrack, I would love to see you in Hamilton. Personally.
I mean, that would be fun. The door has been opened for that now. They have had Caucasian actors playing leads in that show now, so the door is now open for that to occur. So I could probably be the oldest Lafayette that's ever hit the stage.
I would just love to see you in it. I feel like you'd be
That
phenomenal
would
in
be a lot
any
of fun.
role in
That
that
would be a
show.
lot of
I
fun.
feel like it'd be
Oh yeah,
phenomenal.
that would be a lot of fun for sure.
So now we're getting a little more like deep. Okay.
Okay, deep cuts. Okay,
Who has been the biggest influence in your life? Like what person?
a person.
Yeah, like who has been the
Oh
biggest influence in
shit.
your life?
You know, I said it. I said his name before. I'll say it again. It'd be Lou Zampronia. Weirdly enough,
Okay.
and he and I had a we like for a long time had a very antagonistic relationship. Not even in a bad way. This is to contextualize, and I'm going to use weird theater term that most people won't understand. He did a lot of his shows under Bob Fosse, like was directed by him, and he carried that sort of. He was sort of Fosse light, especially when I was younger and he was younger. Like he was again like would be the choreographer that would be sitting there with the cigarette doing all the moves and then going to sit down. He was very very Fosse before I even had a context for what that meant. But I learned an awful like not just as a performer but as a person, because I just seeing how he interacted with people taught me a lot about how to treat people, and in some cases how to not treat people, which is stuff I've carried with me in my personal life and especially like even doing the stuff I do now.
Okay. So that
Um,
lends itself to the next question, which is also
yeah.
deep cut.
Okay.
What do you think is the best piece of advice you've been given in your life?
Best piece of advice I've given in my life. I gotta think now. See, you see, you're hitting me with this. You're making me have to think back on my life, which always gets me both ponderous and emotional. You son of a bitch.
You know, I like to pull you in with the
Yeah,
pork
no,
and
that's
cell
good.
phones, and then I just
Yeah, pork and cell phones, and then into like deep introspective conversation. Well, shit. All right.
uh,
Best piece of advice I ever got.
I also love while you're thinking about this, that talking
Yeah.
about the person who's the biggest influence that was almost antagonistic, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of times those antagonistic
Mm-hmm.
relationships are a catalyst for
Mm-hmm.
growth. I really do feel like those are
It,
sometimes the
it was entirely why he would do it is because his job was not to be your friend. His job was to be a director or to be a choreographer. He's like, we can be, and he and I get along great now. But at the time, it was very, and again, this was also, again, like early to mid 90s. So it was long before the everyone is a special, unique person. It was the no, if you're shit, I'm going to tell you you're shit. And he had would do so in front of people. Like it was very, very, yeah. Like it was one of those things that people either loved him or hated him, but they always respected him regardless. Because that was he didn't give a fuck if you were his friend. He just cared that you did what he knew you were capable of, which is part of
knowing
why
you
it
as
stuck with me.
I do get that vibe from you. You are very much that
Yeah,
same way. Whether people love you or hate you, people will absolutely respect you. From all the
I
people that I
try.
know that are mutuals, so
Yeah,
I will
that
say that.
I try.
Okay,
I try to at least be, yeah. But the best piece of advice, I'm
I was
gonna
gonna
have to
say
paraphrase
time's
because I
up.
can't remember
Advice.
I know. It would be from my dad's dad, and I'm trying to think of exactly. I can't remember how he said it, but I'm trying to remember the basic crux of what he was trying to say. Um,
Was it
it was a
French?
no, not not French at all. Oh Lord, he was not French. He hated the French. We don't talk about that. My dad's dad uh, just didn't like the French. Long story, won't get into it. Um, but it was a take on the old, like, be nice to people on your way up because they're the same ones that you're gonna pass on the way back down. His
Mhm.
version was more of, it's like if you piss on people on the way up, they're gonna be toweling off on you when you go down. But it was far more colorful than that. But that was the crux of what he was trying to get at. Which is why,
So
again, I
basically,
try
be
to.
careful the seeds you sow type of thing.
It was one of those, just, again, it's like, if you shit on people when you're, starting out and getting more and more, getting bigger and bigger, is that if slash when you eventually fall, they're going to be waiting for you on the way down to kick you in the ass.
No, that's good
Which is,
advice.
again,
That is.
it's how I've always tried tried my best to deal with people, and I haven't always succeeded with that. But also at the same time, some people I would give chances to, some people I wouldn't. But you know, I tried to always at least be upfront about it.
I
Yeah,
feel that. I love
yeah.
that. That was great though. Like that's definitely so. Like a lot of these, when I'm asking people, because I've asked everyone that so
Hmm.
far about the best piece of advice.
Hmm.
I feel like so far everything everyone has said resonates with me. Like you guys have given
Yeah.
me a lot to think about, even. So,
Hmm.
is there anything that you want to mention or whatever? Because I have one more question we talked about, but is there anything else you want
Yeah.
to talk about before we wrap up here? Or?
Um, Not really. I lead a very boring life these days. A very quiet, solitary existence.
It's all the pork
But
and
that's
axe
okay.
throwing. That's what it is.
It's all these years of pork and axe throwing, and now just mostly shelved because of this. But that's neither here nor there. We're working on that. We're fixing that.
Wasn't saying, of course, we'll get into that. I will have you back. Like I've said this in
Oh
every
man,
episode so far, because in these
absolutely.
first episodes, everybody has been my friends basically that I'm
Yeah,
interviewing here. But that leads me to my final question. We did talk about
yeah.
this because I've been kind of
Hmm.
prompting everyone beforehand.
Absolutely.
But my final question to you is for recommendations. So G2 Kappa, it's get to know a
Hmm.
person already. Of course, so far I've been interviewing people I know. But the biggest part of this
Hmm.
is to really reach out and hear people's stories that I may not know at all, or that I may not have
That's
branched
fair.
out at more than a
Hmm.
surface level. So, is there anybody you
Yeah.
think would be interested and interesting that would be on the podcast?
Funny you say that. I happen to have a name on the top of my head. I didn't prepare this at
Okay.
all. This is purely off the top of my head. No, I'm fucking with you. JOC, James O'Connor, the Hog.
Okay.
Because that man is fascinating. Like, I've from day one, I've always said I dig that guy. But like, I've said this to you before. It's like this. He's the most quiet, chill, mild mannered dude in the world, but then we'll just drop like random nuggets of his life information that just blow
Blows your
your
mind.
mind. You're and like I personally would just love to be like, just tell me your story, and I will sit there with a box of pretzels and be like, please, just it's so
Crack
salty
a
but good.
beer. Just
I
kick
love
back.
that. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I
You were an
dig that. And I want to hear
astronaut?
nothing that man would say would surprise me at all. He could be like, and then I worked for the CIA for 4 years and I shot Kennedy. I'd be like, I didn't even know you were that old, but I'll believe anything you tell me. Well, there was time travel. Absolutely. I love the man, but I believe literally anything he would tell me because he just doesn't lie. He doesn't bullshit. He is who he is, but he's the chillest dude in the world.
I'd be like, I smoked weed with Snoop Dogg and dapped up an alien. I'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah, you
this is the
did.
greatest. This
Well
is the greatest
done.
story of my life. Yeah.
Like,
No,
I
but
will add that to my list of fame adjacent.
that's actually a great recommendation. Huge fan of James. He is a mutual friend of ours. But again, another person that like I was trying while we were talking about this to kind of think of
Mhm.
somebody because he is very like enigmatic, where it's like he's
Yeah.
that dude that's always kind of there. And you always like you talk to him, but like
Yeah.
you don't know a ton about him, and then he
Yeah.
just hits you with something. You're like,
You're
"You're a
like, that's
Nobel Peace
wild.
Prize? Like,
Yeah, like
you
it's
won the Nobel
wild.
Peace Prize? What?"
That's the thing. Like, it just, like, nothing, just from having known him as long as I have and just having borne witness to some of those nuggets of information, nothing he says would surprise me, but I'm so curious to learn.
I definitely will hit him up. So,
Yeah.
fun fact for me alone, probably, but View Count, of course, our overall brand that we are all in the umbrella of, that we're doing these different podcasts and stuff under. I'm opening up the Discord soon that we're having for our community, and the very first person I had in there as our first public member to do some testing me, James O'Connor. So shout out to James,
Yeah.
much love, and he definitely, I'll get him on here if he's willing to do it. He may not want to do it, but shout out to him anyway.
JOC, if you're hearing this, you got to do it, brother. You got to do it. I need to hear your story, man. I got to hear it.
That's right. But thank you so much. And so, of course, Jables and Cage forever, but Matt as well. But I love you, brother. Thank you so much for being on here.
Absolutely,
you have
buddy.
been my ride or die for so long. I couldn't absolutely think of having someone better on the podcast to go through this again with. I can't wait to have another one of these. I can't wait for all of the projects we're going to get into. And I can't wait to see where we're at 6 months from now, man. You're incredibly talented. You're incredibly creative. You are an inspiration to me. You are absolutely someone that I trust, and has really shown me kindness that I really haven't found in a lot of other people. So I appreciate you as a person, brother. I really do.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope everyone at home enjoyed this as well. Leave us a comment. Let me know what you want me to ask Matt in our next interview that will happen definitely in the future, or just other things you may be interested. Maybe I'll pick his brain sometime and put little nuggets on here of his experience slinging phones or something.
I got wild stories from everywhere.
There you go. But let us know in the comments what you guys saw. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we will be back in probably a few days. Whatever day this dropped down, we're dropping G2 Kappa 2 days a week.
And can I say the thing? Can I say the thing?
Sure. Hey, do it up.
Don't forget to smash that like button.
That's right. Like, subscribe, whatever else you do. If you're on Spotify, do whatever Spotify and Apple Podcasts do.
Hit that follow button. Write a review. Send your recommendations. Please listen to us.
Buttons. Hit all the buttons except for the X. Don't hit the X unless you're done. Then
don't hit the X. Let it loop it a couple times, and then
That's right. Algorithm things.
Next one we'll do some ASMR.
Bro, I would. You say that. I thought about doing an ASMR channel. If me and you do an
S words are the best words. S words are the best words.
That's happening. Okay. Don't throw me.
It's happening.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be back. Bye.